Iran-Israel War Detailed Review, B-2 bomber attacks. This wasn't just another flare-up in the Middle East. It marked one of the boldest and most technologically advanced military operations of the modern era. On June 22, 2025, the world witnessed a dramatic escalation as the United States deployed its B-2 Spirit stealth bombers to strike Iran's most fortified nuclear sites. These strikes weren't just about military might, they carried enormous geopolitical weight, signaling a red line had been crossed in the long-standing tension between Iran and Israel, and now, the United States. The B-2 bomber attacks were part of Operation Midnight Hammer, a mission so secretive and complex that only a handful of U.S. military and intelligence personnel knew about it in advance. The operation was triggered after months of Israeli intelligence pointing to Iran's rapid advancements in uranium enrichment, reportedly reaching 90% purity at its Fordow and Natanz nuclear sites, levels necessary for weaponization. The buildup to conflict. The seeds of this confrontation were planted months before the B-2s took off. By early 2025, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, had repeatedly expressed concerns that Iran was restricting access to its nuclear facilities. Satellite imagery confirmed increased underground construction at Fordow, one of Iran's most secure nuclear sites, buried beneath 80 meters of rock and reinforced concrete. At the same time, Israeli intelligence detected increased Iranian ballistic missile movements and coordination with proxy militias across Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. Tensions boiled over in May 2025 when an Israeli airstrike near Damascus killed a high-ranking Iranian IRGC general. In response, Iran launched dozens of drones and rockets toward Israel. Although most were intercepted, the attack resulted in several casualties and caused significant damage to infrastructure in Tel Aviv and Haifa. With both sides on high alert, the United States stepped in, not to de-escalate, but to end what they believed was a growing existential threat. President Donald Trump, during his second term, made it clear, if Iran continued enriching uranium and attacking Israeli assets, the U.S. would respond decisively. The B-2 bombers take flight. In the early hours of June 22nd, 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers departed from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Each bomber was loaded with 2 GBU-57AB massive ordnance penetrators, MOPs, each weighing 30,000 pounds and capable of penetrating 200 feet of concrete. The B-2 is the only aircraft in the world capable of carrying these bombs due to its payload capacity and stealth design. To avoid radar detection, the bombers flew at extremely low altitudes, used strict radio silence, and were refueled mid-air multiple times over the Atlantic and Middle East. The entire mission lasted over 37 hours for each aircraft. The primary targets were Iran's Fordow fuel enrichment plant, Natanz uranium enrichment facility, and the Isfahan nuclear research site. All three were either partially or fully underground. These were not ordinary bombing missions. They were designed to destroy facilities buried deep beneath reinforced bunkers. In addition to the B-2s, the U.S. Navy launched 30 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the eastern Mediterranean, targeting Iranian air defenses and radar installations in Kerman, Yazd, and Shiraz. Meanwhile, F-22 Raptors and F-35s provided air support and electronic warfare jamming from the Gulf region. Iran's defenses and immediate response. Despite Iran's claim of having a robust air defense system, including Russian-made S-300 batteries and domestically developed systems like the Fordow 15, the B-2s flew in and out of Iranian airspace undetected. The strikes were over in less than 30 minutes, and by the time Iran scrambled its jets, the B-2s were already en route to friendly airspace. Iranian state media acknowledged significant damage to its nuclear infrastructure, but insisted the program would continue. Independent assessments using satellite imagery confirmed that the Fordow facility was severely compromised, with multiple access tunnels collapsed and visible structural damage to the enrichment halls. Natanz, though also hit, appeared to have sustained less damage due to its newer protective layers. Within hours, Iran launched a retaliatory barrage. Over 150 ballistic missiles and more than 100 drones were fired toward Israeli military and strategic infrastructure. Israel's Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow 3 systems intercepted approximately 90% of the incoming threats, but several missiles broke through, causing casualties and power outages across central Israel. At least 28 Israelis were reported dead and over 1,400 injured. Global reaction and strategic fallout. The global response to the operation was mixed. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting where Russia and China condemned the US and Israel's actions, labeling them unilateral aggression. Meanwhile, NATO allies such as the UK, France, and Germany expressed concern, but stopped short of direct condemnation. Israel and the United States claimed the strike was both legal and necessary, citing Article 51 of the UN Charter, self-defense. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, called the attacks a declaration of war and vowed revenge. However, Iran stopped short of declaring all-out war, likely due to the overwhelming technological and military gap between itself and the US-Israel alliance. Instead, Tehran signaled a shift toward asymmetric retaliation, using cyber attacks and proxy strikes in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. U.S. intelligence agencies, while calling the operation a success, were cautious in their assessment. According to a classified Pentagon report leaked later, the attacks were estimated to have set Iran's nuclear program back by 9 to 12 months, not the multiple years publicly claimed by President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Military and technological significance. The B-2 strike was not just a military maneuver, it was a showcase of unmatched air power and stealth technology. The B-2 Spirit, which costs over $2.1 billion per unit, has a radar cross-section smaller than a bird and can strike any target on Earth without being detected. Its use in the Iran operation proved that even heavily defended countries with modern radar systems could still be vulnerable to stealth-based attacks. Each GBU-57 bomb used in the mission was valued at around $20 million and represented the most advanced bunker buster technology in existence. These bombs use a GPS-guided system and are designed to burrow through hundreds of feet of earth and reinforced concrete before detonating. This operation also marked the first time multiple B-2s had been used in a single coordinated combat strike, a significant tactical evolution from previous single-bomber missions in Iraq, Kosovo, and Libya. Strategic consequences and what's next. Though the world avoided full-scale war, the consequences of the B-2 attacks are still unfolding. Iran has since moved more of its nuclear infrastructure even deeper underground and diversified its locations to avoid future strikes. There is growing speculation that Iran may accelerate work on mobile nuclear capabilities or seek help from North Korea in hardening its facilities further. Israel, on the other hand, believes the strikes bought them critical time. Officials stated that the operation disrupted not just nuclear development, but also sent a message to Hezbollah and other Iranian-backed groups that Israeli air superiority remains unchallenged. The United States has since increased its presence in the region, deploying additional carrier strike groups and THAAD anti-missile systems to protect allies in the Gulf. Washington has also held joint exercises with Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, states to prepare for potential Iranian counterattacks on oil infrastructure or shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz. Cybersecurity firms have already noted an uptick in Iranian-attributed cyber attacks targeting Israeli and American infrastructure. Attacks range from attempted intrusions into power grids to ransomware targeting government websites. The human and political cost. Beyond the military and strategic implications, the human toll cannot be ignored. Iranian workers at the targeted facilities suffered casualties, although exact numbers remain unclear. Families in Israel face sudden loss from retaliatory strikes. Across both countries, fear, anxiety, and nationalistic sentiment have grown. Domestically, the strike has polarized politics in both Iran and the United States. Iranian hardliners are pushing for a more aggressive foreign policy, while reformist voices have been largely silenced. In the U.S., the mission boosted Trump's approval ratings temporarily, but critics argue that the move risks sparking a wider regional war. The B-2 bomber attacks in the Iran-Israel War of 2025 weren't just a military operation, they were a signal, a demonstration of capability, intent, and red lines. Operation Midnight Hammer showcased the power of stealth technology and long-range precision, but also exposed the fragile line between deterrence and escalation. Iran's nuclear ambitions are far from over, and the question remains, was this a one-time preemptive strike, or just the beginning of a new chapter in Middle Eastern conflict? For now, the skies are quiet, but tension remains. As Iran rebuilds and the US and Israel monitor closely, the next move could come from anywhere, above ground, underground, or online. If you found this breakdown informative and want more deep dives into global conflicts, military strategy, and high-stakes geopolitics, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Stay informed, stay curious, and see you in the next one.